everyone. Thank you for joining. I am Katie Shorey, Startup Maine's president. This is our 14th session of the Entrepreneurs and Ecosystem Builders series. These virtual events feature thinkers and doers from across the state who are working on and building awesome companies and products, and also people who are working to further develop our ecosystem. And today's event would not be possible without our sponsors, Bangor Savings Bank and Maine Technology Institute, Maine Venture Fund, and Maine Angels. And now a quick shout out to our sponsors. For those who don't know, Maine Technology Institute was founded and funded in 1999 by the Maine State Legislature, and they offer grants, loans, equity investments, and services to support Maine's innovation economy. And they support new ideas, products, or methods with the potential to grow and diversify Maine's economy. MTI also supports Maine's innovation economy through event sponsorships like this. So we thank them. They have been such a supportive partner over the year. To learn more and to find out if you are eligible for funding, visit mainetechnology.org. We are also supported by Maine Venture Fund. The mission of MVF is to invest in dynamic businesses that have the potential for significant growth and impact in Maine. And a big thanks to Maine Angels. The Maine Angels are accredited equity investors who help entrepreneurs by investing in and mentoring early stage companies. Their goal is to make sound investments in promoting New England entrepreneurs with an emphasis on scalable Maine companies. So visit maineangels.org.
All across New England, business owners are finding new ways to succeed. Families are working hard to provide for their loved ones and their future. It's the spirit of New Englanders that inspires all of us to do more. It's in our employees, our customers, and our communities. Every day we do more. Because at Bangor Savings Bank, we truly believe you matter more.
All right, so I'm so excited for today's guest. I'm going to be monitoring the Q&A. So if you have questions as we go along, please drop it in the Q&A. So today, I can't believe I finally have you on today, David Douglas Stone. Thank you so much for joining us. Many of you know who are listening in. David, you know David from CashStar, which sold in 2016 for $178 million and was the largest pure software exit ever in the state of Maine. CashStar led the way for tech startups when it was founded in 2007, when the startup economy was nascent. CashStar also played a key role in establishing Maine as a strong fintech market environment for startups, paving the way for several others. Maine Biz selected David as the Business Leader of the Year in 2012, and most recently, David was one of a 38-member class of champions in 2020 as part of the Champions of Change Award. And today we're going to be talking to him about his personal and professional journey and what crucial steps and learnings led to the success of CashStar, as well as his newest venture, Forager. So David, thank you so much for being here. What an intro. Welcome to the program.
Katie, that was an amazing and overly kind intro. You are the one that deserves all the honors and the credit for putting these things together and carrying on all your great work during this pandemic.
Thank you.
And helping to lead the way for our Maine startup economy. So do you want me just to, good morning, everybody, by the way. It's a beautiful, if you're here in Maine, it's a beautiful spring day here in Maine. We're all optimistic and hopeful as we come out of this crazy pandemic. Lots of good things to come for all of us and for Maine. Katie, do you want to ask me questions, or should I just get rolling?
Well, I do think we should. So for folks, there might be people in here that don't know you, don't know your story. So can you just tell us a bit about yourself and your entrepreneurial journey to date, and then we can dive into some other questions.
Perfect. So, my journey through 64 years of life so far has led me down many paths, twists and turns, lots of ups and downs. I really feel like I've had a very rich and full life, and I'm very grateful for that. I've always been a risk taker, and I think, as you assess yourself, if you decide to be a startup person, even though it's obvious, risk is something you really, and uncertainty, have to be comfortable with. I've had a lot of diverse experiences and life events. I've founded and co-founded 3 ventures, worked for 8 others, worked for 5 Fortune companies, and also helped do a turnaround for a $200 million company, and I worked for 2 venture capitalists. How I did all that in 20, 30 years, I don't know. I'm a father of 5 children, which is a life unto itself. God bless my wife. I actually started my career working for the U.S. government when I think I was 19 or 20 years old. I had this passion about changing the world, and the call to service was something that was very important to me. So I worked for the State Department in Germany during the Cold War. That's another story for another day. I worked for the Congressional Research Service under the Carter administration in DC. But I quickly realized that, as a creative entrepreneurial type and a passionate guy, which you'll probably see if you don't know me, government service wasn't the best place for me. So as a young guy, I went to work for American Express at the age of 23. Spent 14 years there, including 4 years in Hong Kong as a 34-year-old young executive managing 33 countries for American Express credit cards. It's kind of wild days. And after American Express and a brief tour to a big insurance company, I went to work for my first startup, 1996. Probably many of you were in diapers or not born, but those were the days when we had dial-up modems, baud rates, that weird sound that if you've ever heard a dial-up modem make. We had 50 to 100 megabits, a second. And if you've ever waited for an image to load or text to load for a long, long time, you understand what it is. Today, we operate 1,000 times faster. And, when I was working for this startup, which was a search engine startup, I remember going to a party, plugging in my computer in the wall, and like my friends were like, "What is this? This internet? What the hell is it?" They thought I was crazy. So I've always been a pioneer, and like many pioneers, I have had arrows in my back and I have scars to show it. I came to Maine after my first startup to work for Unum, which was a very different experience, but I came with the promise of putting them on the internet. They gave me $10 million to kind of build my own intraventure, if you will, as opposed to entrepreneurial. And it was great for about a year, and then, it wasn't so great for me anymore because I was actually making things happen. And Unum was actually the second company in the United States to actually put products for sale on the internet. And then, the merger came, and many of the senior executives left. And this is the next part of my story. I found myself with a large severance check and 5 children, and I needed to find work, and I wanted to do a startup in Maine in 1999, 2000. And I talked to everybody, Angus King, the 1 or 2 venture firms we had, other entrepreneurs. Everybody said it wasn't going to be possible, David. You can't build a successful tech startup in Maine. There just isn't enough talent. There isn't enough capital, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I worked away for the next 7 or 8 years to support my family. And I did everything from commute to Perth, Australia, to help with a turnaround, which is about as far as you can commute from Maine. Go drilled a hole through the earth, you'd actually end up in Perth. I ran a joint venture in the UK as part of this company with the big transit companies. I commuted to Boston several times, including sleeping in a basement in Cambridge, Massachusetts, when I worked for a venture capitalist. I also worked with the Boston Red Sox, who funded a startup that I also created, and spent a lot of time in Fenway Park during the 2003 years. So that's kind of what got me back to Maine. Yeah. So what brought me back to Maine was CashStar, and I am going to talk separately about that. But basically, for 8 years, as I traveled the earth and worked for several startups and a bunch of other things, my vision and passion was to create a startup in Maine, and the stars aligned, and I was able to create CashStar. And I'm going to stop there because otherwise I'm going to go on and on and on, and we're going to get to more of the meat.
Well, it's really interesting to hear that background because, and then when I heard you say American Express, that made me think, oh, okay, interesting payments sector right there. And then, but you were still kind of like figuring out how to build. Like this just didn't happen overnight. So, okay, let's talk a bit more about about CashStar, but also just because you're the first guest that I've had on in a while about like can really point to this earlier stage of the startup community and really how we've started to form sectors. So yeah, let's dive in here because
Do you want me to do CashStar, or do you want me to go back to the sectors?
let's talk a bit about CashStar, and I know you are passionate about Maine focusing on sectors. So yeah, tell us some of the learnings from CashStar and just this whole story and how this happened, because you
Yeah,
have the whole start to exit.
well, thank you. So, CashStar was founded in 2007, right before the Great Recession. And in 2008, the Great Recession came. I had raised $3 million with my co-founder in Silicon Valley. And originally the idea was a much bigger idea. We were trying to become like the next PayPal by unifying online and brick and mortar payment transaction. There were no ways to do that. You either bought things online with PayPal or whatnot, or you presented your plastic card in the physical world. So we were trying to create the first online to offline currency, something you could send over the internet with a barcode and then print it out, because there was no mobile smartphones in those days, and print it out and use it as a currency. We narrowed the focus, which is one of the lessons when the going gets rough, to the $100 billion gift card industry, which is the largest single gifting category in the world, and it was all plastic. So the insight I had was to basically that the world was going to change and digital transactions were going to become much more significant. A lot of people thought I was crazy, but we were able to do it. We ended up with a who's who of clients. We ended up running all of their digital gifting experiences. So if you ever sent a gift card over the internet or by phone, CashStar was probably running that service for many of the top brands. And we achieved $2 billion in digital currency and really catalyzed the shift from plastic to digital payments in a big way. And we helped establish and expand our payments and fintech focus and sector here. We also smashed a lot of records, did some amazing innovative things. I had so many great people who.
How are you finding people, David?
Yeah, so this was one of the other reasons, right? So one of the good and bad things is 2008. If any of you, those listening in, remember what Portland, Maine was like, a third of the restaurants were closed, a third of the retail shops were closed. So finding kind of some talent was pretty easy, and we actually gave people that needed jobs. And then we picked and chose from places like Ride Express and IDEX or WEX, and then we had to import about 10-15% of our talent, including my CFO and a number of other people. But most of them have stayed in Maine, so we're really great that we were able to bring people in. And at one point we had 65, 70 people in our software and engineering development team. We're very much a product-oriented company. Wow. And as I said, many of these folks like Alan Fitzgerald and Phelps Peeler and Charlie White and Ken and numbers of others have gone on to work in a number of other companies. Brian Rigney and others have gone on to work for many of the other startups or gone back to IDEX and whatnot over the years. So I'm just going to quickly do the learnings, Katie. I know we're going to jump around, but again, some of this will be fairly obvious, but again, often the greatest insights are very obvious, but if you're in an early stage startup, you really want to hire people that are jacks of all trades, that can do lots of things and wear multiple hats, because you're going to need people that can jump into something and just take on more than one job. It's just you can't have if you're a person of 6 or 7 people, you can't have 7 experts. You've got to have generalists. Of course, you always want to have 1 or 2 subject matter experts. A hard lesson learned for me was we chase the golden pot of gold at the end of the rainbow when everybody wants money, and someone offers you a $10 million check, you're salivating over it. but you really want to be wise. I made at least one mistake at CashStar. I'm not going to mention the name, but it was not a good fit for us, and it was a very short-sighted VC that was very profit focused, and that was not our goal or my goal at CashStar. It was really to build this platform and digitize this entire industry. So I really recommend, as hard as it is, to be thoughtful. Build strategic relationships with your customers. We were able to build amazing relationships with the Home Depot and Starbucks and Williams-Sonoma. They were hugely supportive. They paid for lots of our development. They promoted us. They did all kinds of great things. And look to them to be partners and help you grow and excel.
And how do you, just not, sorry to interrupt you, but how did you get in? I mean, was it through other connections? How did you really secure those kinds of strategic relationships? Was it like a quick thing? Was it something that took years or had been already in the works? Like, how did you really hone in on those big strategic partners?
Well, I mean, it's, we could spend 3 hours talking about how you find customers and how you turn them into advocates. I mean, in the beginning, it was really tough. I mean, I hired a I had a really good, that's one of my lessons. I had a salesperson that actually had come out of the gift card industry, and knew a lot of the retailers, but I can remember going to my first trade show, and us having a little booth. Nobody knew who we were. And we had a meeting with the Home Depot, and we said, we're here to help you turn your, I think they had a $1.5 billion gift card in this business. We're here to help you turn your business digitally, because that's what consumers want to do. They don't want to keep buying plastic and sending them in an envelope. And the person said to us, interesting idea, come back and talk to us in 5 years.
Oh.
But we just, again, there's sort of a playbook, and I think it's another story for another day.
Great.
We were able to get enough interest, and then we went and presented, and the two other incumbents in the industry, one who ended up buying us, very, very large billion-dollar companies, they showed up with almost nothing. They were like, oh, we're confident, we're cocky. And we spent a lot of time building an amazing pitch deck and videos, and we just went all out, and we won the bid. It was actually a formal bid, and from there things, and Starbucks is another story that I was personally very involved with, and made it my mission to sign them, but that came later. Later. So Katie, I don't know, I want to be thoughtful. Where else do you want me to go with this? Because I know.
Yeah, no, I know. I want to hear a bit about, well, I would love to talk a bit about the foundations of the Maine tech economy. And just like you've told me before, the emphasis on having sectors and honing in on that for talent reasons. And so I would love to just get your input on that.
Okay, and I got to save a few minutes for Forager. Okay, so
of course, yes, no, we'll chat about Forager.
Otherwise, I'm not doing my job as a founder, right? Right. So again, I've been in Maine for quite a while. I'm not a Mainer, but
yes, you are.
Part of my wife's family is, so I'm related. But our tech economy, which has gotten much more vibrant, because of people like Katie, and I'm sure a number of others, and the sponsors that Katie mentioned in the beginning, really has gone through 3 phases, and what I call the foundationers, and now they're anchors, IDEX and WEX, and then there were several others that I'm only picking a few. And IDEX is its own story. It's a $60 billion market cap in its own right today, which is, for Maine, huge. And Right Express, or WEX, is an 800 million. They were out at an $800 million IPO. And then these other companies, by and large, when the dot-com crash came in 2000, went out of business. And then it became a very fallow period here in Maine. And basically nothing happened in the tech scene for about 7 years. And that's the time I spent away. And then came the next group of pioneers. And I'm sure I'm not covering everybody, but these are folks that helped establish our startup system: CashStar, Certify, Blue Tarp, Putney, Kepware, and all of these companies have sold or gone, or combined, they created $500 million of exits for Maine, which is a really important means of attracting more capital. And then the next generation of, a much more richer, vibrant, and again, I'm not talking about everybody here. I'm only talking about a handful, but there's $20 million invested in these companies. It's actually old data now, alone in these little startups. And that would have been unheard of when I started CashStar. It doesn't sound like a ton of money, but it just didn't happen. And that's significant. And I'm a really strong believer when you're in a state of about 1.3 million people, which is not a lot of people, you have to have expertise, talent, and focus. So, we need to be able to hire people. We need to be able to share best practices. We need to build these clusters. So fintech and payments are one sector. It's well established now. We obviously have a number of companies that are playing in the space. There's the pets and vets sector. Again, lots of companies spawned and doing well. Healthcare, you could add biotech to this. Also doing really well. Mingo Health, who I coached a while back, doing incredibly well. Company out of Paris, Maine. Who would have thunk it?
Right.
Incredibly successful. And then, my favorite new sector, which is food, tech, aquaculture.
Yes.
Huge potential, underexploited, ton of opportunity. Dots aren't connected well yet, but really exciting. And then, sorry, go ahead, Katie. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say this could be a good segue into Forager, but I want your 2 cents on like why this is important for investors. I mean, I know that you've pitched hundreds, maybe over thousands of investors. So like, what does us having a focus mean for the investor network?
Well, so you want to sort of, and when I was starting Forager, I actually reached out. I know a lot of fintech VCs, and one of the premier VCs in New York said to me, "Yeah, Maine is really becoming a fintech payments hub." It was already being recognized. When Bob Neveu was leading Certify, 2 VCs called me and asked for introductions to him because they knew that, so you begin to develop a reputation as a place where companies can succeed, and they know there's enough talent and enough infrastructure to be able to build these companies. And you also need anchors, right? So, you think about, the way many of the tech ecosystems got built. In Seattle, you had Microsoft and Amazon. Silicon Valley, initially Apple and Intel, and then the rest of them, Facebook and Google. New York became famous for ad tech. Cambridge, Massachusetts for biotech. You can go on and on and on for these things. So having an anchor is really important, and VCs will care a lot about that. Should I jump to Forager now?
Yeah, let's talk to Forager, because we're getting closer to 9, but I already told folks that we're probably going to go a little late. I absolutely understand if people have to jump at 9, but I want to have this conversation, and we'll have the recording. So let's talk about Forager, and we already have an interesting question in the Q&A. So let's tell us how Forager came to be, the quick version of how you got there.
So after CashStar, 5.5 years building the company from 0 to about 20 million in earned revenue, I was burnt out and resigned under a lot of pressure, frankly, and another story for another day. After working for like 30 years or whatever it was, I took an around the world walkabout by myself for 79 days, traveled 29,000 miles, 4 continents, 14 countries, and mostly stayed with acquaintances, friends, or people I met, so that I could see the world through their eyes and not as a tourist. And as part of that journey of discovery, I realized what's important in life. It's not the things you accumulate. It's not how much money you have in the bank. It's not how handsome or beautiful you are on Instagram. It's really, what you leave behind and the relationships you build. And I felt it was really important for me to do something that had more significance in an impactful way, and that could also help Maine in an even more relevant way. And that was how Forager was birthed in 2014. And the backdrop to this story, and again, it's all about the market and trying to understand a market, is we have started over 1,000 new farms in the last 10 years, the majority by people under 40% by women. We have a huge agricultural economy here, a huge aquaculture economy here. We also have thousands of makers and artisanal people that make tortillas and kombuchas and granolas and beer. It's a wealth of entrepreneurship. It's a microcosm and a macrocosm, if there's such a word, all in one. And it's crying out to be connected digitally to make these things more available to buyers. So we're a mission-based company. Our goal is to really make locally sourced food more widely available to everybody. It's an analog process. It doesn't scale. It's paper, it's pens, it's phone calls, it's a mess. And so, I set out to, once again, change an industry through my passion and, humbly kind of seeing around the corner and down the road. And I'm going to skip this because we don't have time, but if you're going to make an impact, food is the biggest industry in the world. And, the big industrial agricultural food complex is what I call it, is destroying our planet. It is the biggest impact on our healthcare, our environment, and our socioeconomic systems. If we're going to make a difference, this is really the place to do it. If we care about our planet, it is so important. I can't stress it enough.
Yes.
I don't have time to show you the dead fish in the ocean, but we're killing our oceans, our soils, everything. I don't have time to talk about the accolades, but getting press is really important in an early stage startup. We've been incredibly important. So I'm going to skip through this because I don't have time. But the problems we're trying to solve, there should always be problems you're aware of when you're building a startup. They should be clear. You should be able to express them to someone in an elevator or on a bike or on a coffee shop. So the three challenges we were trying to solve was, one, it's a manual, inefficient process. It doesn't scale. If you're like a Rosemont or a Hannaford, and you're working with 30 or 50 farms, it's phone calls, emails, texts, paper checks. You can't build a business on that. There's no marketplace. If a farm has extra products or extra strawberries or kale, they don't know how to get rid of it. If a grocer or restaurant's looking for something and they can't find it, they give up and buy the conventional food. And there's no data. There's no barcodes on produce. There's no standard SKUs. There's no way to really understand what you're buying and what you're selling. So it's a mess. So we built a platform that basically organizes all of a wholesale buyers, a grocer, a school, an institution, into a single B2B e-commerce platform where they can see what the farms have. They can order with a few clicks, and we basically digitize the discovery, ordering, the invoicing, payments, and analytics process, and significant savings and time. Do we have time for the video or not?
We can I think let me ask you two more questions, and then we can play the video. So if you think, it sounds like you're really seeing a need for digitizing the economy in Maine in this sector. Is there any other thoughts on, because we had Chip from Oyster Tracker, so we're seeing a lot more of this. So I'm personally curious how why you're bullish on Maine at this stage.
So we have, and this is not just the case so if you think about networks, right, or super networks, right? There's Bob Metcalfe's law, who invented the Ethernet, the first internet connection network, right? If you have, the value of a network is equal to the square of the number of users. That's the law, right? So if I have one person on the internet, it's worth one. If I have two, it's worth four. If I have four, it's worth 16, because, right? So we have all of these nodes, farms, oyster makers, cheese makers, tortilla chip makers, chocolate makers, dental floss makers. Lots of these are also women owned. It's amazing. But there's no connection. They're isolated. They may be selling to one person, they may be selling to another, but there's no connection. So if University of Maine, for example, or Hannaford's, or I'm just picking Maine for or Eventide, which is obviously very busy all the time, wants to find new oysters, what do? right? Let's say their oyster person's, or let's say they have more demand than they can meet. What do? Or what about that oyster farmer that, is trying to get started, like Love Point out here in Freeport?
Yeah.
Actually the son, Small World of Maine, one of my son's best friend is Cameron Barnard, who went to Colby with a whole group of them. But there's no digital highway. There's no visibility out there. There are these disparate little places. So
right.
By digitizing all of their catalogs and all of their product offerings and allowing anybody anywhere to see what they have and with a few clicks be able to order, it creates a whole new market. And it allows Maine to kind of lead the way in being a digital economy for food, which is one of the next biggest sectors of growth, just like healthcare has been. It's the biggest industry in the world, and it's the least digitized.
And we can lead the way.
Exactly.
And Susie asks here, and I think maybe you just answered this question, are you facilitating distribution and production or focusing on marketplace? And I think
yes, sorry. That's a really good question. So we do not, touch distribution. We are a software tech company, digital platform. Distribution is a whole other, skill set. And I've had team members wanting us to get into it. You got to do what you're good at. And no, we do not touch distribution. We enable it, but we don't touch it.
Yes. Well, David, let's play your video and then we can wrap up just a few minutes after that.
Okay. All right. So just really quickly, results. We've done over $8 million, 200,000 products sold. We actually now account for 5% of all local food in Maine, which may not sound like a lot, but for us, we're pretty impressed with that. So let me see if we can get this video to run. So this video is just a 90-second video with customers talking about Forager and some of our interns talking about why they came to work for us. We get hundreds of applicants for interns. We're a tiny little 10-person company, and it's because this Generation Z is so impassioned around sustainability and local food and community. And this is why I think this is potentially going to be a huge success.
Love it. All right.
Can we see my screen?
I still see the YouTube link.
So no working. Let me try one more time, Katie.
You keep looking. Everyone who's listening still, David and I, even though we are, tech savvy, we were struggling.
Doesn't look like
today.
It's for me.
It's not. Yeah, it's. Maybe we need to pull from the other screen.
Try one more time.
Getting food from the greenhouse to the grocery store had been a pretty old-fashioned
So you're not
process
seeing it, right?
until a new.
No, I think we have to. You have to unshare and then reshare the link.
Try one more time. I'm going to try one more time, and if it doesn't work, we're going to stop. Okay.
Okay. All good.
Sure.
People are patient. They know.
So I'm going to try again and see if it works. What's happening is it's opening in the other desktop, and it's just PowerPoint. It sometimes just does that. So I'm going to start.
I promise I will send it out if we can't get it to play.
Getting food from the greenhouse
to
the grocery store.
There we go.
Old-fashioned
hold
process
on,
until a new app came along.
Start it again.
It was the Forager app on his phone that brought Sean Hagen's carrots from his farm in Bodenham.
Just hold on 1 minute. I'm just going to blow it up now that I got it.
There you go.
There we go. All right.
Perfect.
There we go.
Getting food from the greenhouse to the grocery store had been a pretty old-fashioned process until a new app came along. It was the Forager app on his phone that brought Sean Hagen's carrots from his farm in Bodenham to the Rosemont Market in Portland.
Forager is focused on making locally sourced food more widely available to all. We just make it so much easier for grocers, restaurants, and schools to buy from independent farms.
Local was not something that people talked about a lot. Now, the awareness of local food, the desire to source food locally, it's what so many people are talking about.
So Forager kind of bypasses the traditional distribution channels. This software allows us to get product directly from a local farmer, a local purveyor, and our stores can order it directly right into the store through one software.
We need to sell what we grow. And so the technology with Forager just makes it really easy.
instead of having multiple things kind of going on in my head, I know it's all in one place.
So I think people, myself included, are becoming a lot more cognizant of the food that we're eating, where it's coming from, how clean, fresh, and healthy it is. Forager is the first company that I've ever heard of that's really tackling that demand head on.
So I was interested in Forager because I did my senior capstone on organic dairy farms in Maine, and I loved being a vector to tell the story of those farmers. I thought that Forager was an amazing opportunity for me to make a larger impact on local food systems.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about local food. So when I stumbled upon Forager, it felt like it was the next step to really become surrounded by local food.
It's a level of organization we've never had before.
All right. So
Love it.
hopefully you can see some of the passion in those young kids, students, and obviously it was pandemic, so you can see they're all working from home, which is a whole other story.
But the fact that, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. People are so passionate about food and how you're able to really combine technology. And I think Maine is primed for being the place where we really highlight how you can do this and do it well. And so I think what you're working on is unbelievable. And it's such a good story. As we have like 2 minutes left, David, is there anything else?
Well, I just wrap up on my sort of final
Yeah.
reminder. I mean, it's kind of obvious stuff, but I always believe in telling people again. So again, what you really need for startup economies, you need risk-taking entrepreneurs. I know that sounds obvious, but you really need people that are really comfortable with risk. You need successful exits. We haven't talked about it enough. Without capital return to venture capitalists, they're not going to invest. So now we have, as I said, over $500 million of exits in the last few years. We've got to continue to do that. Obviously, Davo was recently bought, which is a good thing. Talent, increasingly so. Capital, again, there isn't still enough capital in Maine. We only have a couple of institutions. Infrastructure. Right. People think of infrastructure as, broadband and other thing. It's much more than that. It's in some ways what Joe Biden says, but not exactly that. It's people like Katie. It's people like MTI, Startup Maine. It's Jeff Spalding.
A whole support network. Yes.
It's a whole support network, and then you need focus and expertise, which I've talked about, and then you need entrepreneurs that are successful. We didn't get to it, but people like Gene Hoffman and Bob Nephew and a number of others, Peter Murray, and I'm sure I'm leaving people out. They're serial entrepreneurs. They keep doing it again, just like Elon Musk and many others that Jack Dorsey, Square, and Twitter, and they just keep at it and they build teams and expertise. So I'm just going to wrap. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just have one question, because you are a risk taker, and is there something that Maine can do that the accelerators can do? How do we enable more risk takers? How do we get them?
Well, I mean, part of it is success breeds success. It's mentoring, but I think our anchors can play a bigger role, frankly, in what we're doing here. They do some, but I really feel like they can help diversify some of the risk, and we could have WEX doing more in the payments world. We could have Hannaford's and some of the big food companies working with MTI to create a cluster for ag and food. I mean, I know we have Focus Maine and a few other things, but they're not really tied well enough together. But risk is one of those things that I don't know that you can teach it. I hate to say it, you're either a risk taker and you kind of know it, or you're not. Now you can obviously enhance those skills and be more comfortable at it, and know not when to panic or or pull at your hair when it's on fire. But it's almost a DNA thing, and if, again, I really encourage entrepreneurs that if you are not comfortable with uncertainty, it's not the right place for you.
There you go.
Things are going to change. almost all the time. And it makes it really exciting. So the last thing I want to end with is everybody knows who Jane Goodall is. We have a choice in our lives about what we want to do. I have a sort of an axiom that I like to use, which is basically, and I used to have it on the walls at CashStar, which is basically, if you love what you do and do what you love, almost nothing else matters. And if you can figure out what your talent is and your passion is around those things, and they're combined, and you continue to develop those skills and master them, you will have a very, very fulfilling and meaningful life and really make a difference. And I would encourage as many of you as possible to think about that. What are you good at? What do you like to do? How can I make a difference? It isn't just about making $1 billion or building the greatest next thing. It's about you, the people you work with, the people you teach, the effect you have on our lives and the future generations. And that is why I continue to do this at 64 years old. And hopefully I've got another 1 or 2 in it. And I'm also happy to, mentor, advise, it's what I love to do at this stage of my life. And if anybody needs to get in touch with me, Katie, I don't know if my email is somewhere, but I want to.
I didn't share it, but we can make sure it's known if you'd like, or however you like people reaching out, LinkedIn or whatnot.
Share it. I can't promise I'll get back to everybody right away. If you want to be an entrepreneur, persist, chase me. Don't be shy. And again, I really want to thank Katie so much. You don't get enough credit. I'm not just saying that because you put me on. Your work is also a labor of love, and it's not one that's probably going to make you super rich. So I know you're doing this out of both your goodness of your heart and your passion. And I look forward to helping any way I can. And I don't know what's happening with Startup Maine in terms of our conferences and all that. I'm sort of out of touch, but I don't know if you want to talk about that now.
We're skipping this year. And David, I so appreciate it, because I think there are so many, there are people like me and others who really exist to support and lift up our ecosystem. And that's what I care about. I mean, who knows, maybe I have it in me someday to be able to be part of a founding team, or, somebody's second hire or something. But I love being able to, where I'm sitting and able to lift up these stories, and meeting people like you and trying to help connect you to folks who might need your mentorship at this place in time. So I just can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. I know how busy you are, and we're getting some great, I'll save the chat here so we can read it later. I just saved it, so I'll send that to you. But I will make sure that people have your video, your email, and then the recording when we're done. So I think, look at that, we're at 9:15, almost at 9:15, just like I thought.
You did great, Katie, because I know I'm not an easy one to keep organized here and keep it in a linear, but thank you all. And thank you all for attending and listening in. And hopefully, if I don't know you, I'll have a chance to meet you in the future. And I don't know, maybe there'll be some more opportunity to get together physically in the real world and see each other.
That's what we can do. Or maybe we could do like because people have said so many questions, so little time. So maybe we could do like in real life fireside chat and then invite people together.
Yeah, maybe we could get Hunt and Alpine to give us a couple of hours for free.
We'll figure
all right,
it
Katie,
out.
I'm going to run. Thank you all,
Thanks,
everybody.
David.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.